And welcome to the InvestGP Standing Committee meeting of March 28th. The people on this committee are myself, Mike O'Connor, Chair Palat, although I'm chairing it for him today, and Mayor Clayton. We're going to start with an area update, and I will go to Ms. Pinnock, who's sitting in for Chief Harrop.
Thank you, and through the chair. In our Economic Development Department, we had 15 new businesses that received congratulatory emails over the past 2 weeks. 4 of those were home-based and 11 were commercial. For 2023 so far, the city has seen 63 new businesses open. In our Rural Renewal Stream program, we've had 164 endorsed candidates come through our program. We have 247 approved employer applications, 36 in progress, and around 552 vacancies. We had 1 local marketing application reviewed by our Economic Recovery Review Committee in the past 2 weeks. And also in the past 2 weeks, our Invest Grande Prairie EDO and CIO attended the World Petrochemical Conference and the World Ag Tech Conference and made some significant leads and strengthened our connections with consulates and particularly with Invest Alberta staff members that are working in those locations. There's a new event manager beginning this week with our Events and Entertainment Division, who will be focused on community-driven events at Bonnet's Energy Centre, Teresa Sargent Hall, and Montrose Cultural Centre. We also have the GP Stampede 2023 tickets are now on sale at the Bonnet's Energy box office and online at bonnetsenergy.com. And one other thing I wanted to note, the 2023 Grande Prairie Guide is now available online and is being distributed. So I know that potentially our Strategy and Communication Services Department will talk a little bit about the sponsorship piece, but that is now available in the community, which is a great thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Pinnock. Do we have any questions regarding the service area? Councillor Bosch?
Thank you, Councillor Blackmore. I've had some people talk to me about the rural renewal stream and the difficulties in bringing people in regards to certification from province to province. It sounds like typically either our people are coming from within the province or within Canada, but there seems to be a certain amount of industry or occupations that aren't on the list to bring people in, such as specialized barbering and millwrights and such, that we can't transfer that certification over to Alberta. How do we advocate for these businesses that are looking for employees and they're readily available, but we just can't get them here in the program?
Thank you, and through the chair, we have identified that and have brought that forward to our colleagues at the province, just so that they would be aware of the situation. The rules and regulations around the different trades and what's expected is at the provincial level. They've decided which of those regulations are in place, and so we've noted that in terms of the impact on our local employers. And if there's, as more information becomes available or specific situations come up with employers, we're obviously relaying those specific challenges up to the province as well.
Okay, I think as a council, our community needs to look at maybe assisting in advocating for something like that, and maybe we'll talk further about this as council meets in the future.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Chair Blackmore. Just a question. I'm pretty sure you might not have the answer right off the top, but I was talking with a home-based business owner just recently, and the discussion was around why we had doubled the home occupation. So I told him the home occupation license fee, which was formerly $100 to $200. So I explained to them during COVID, we saw a lot of people going inside homes, and we saw that as a certain advantage. So we didn't see it as a big cost. I guess my question is, in regards to this, is I feel like now that we're out of COVID, it might be appropriate for a time to review some of our fees, charges, and bylaws. And in regards to home occupation business, I guess part of that, and my question was, and this is what I don't think you might not have it readily available to you, is since the time of 2020 to today, have we seen an increase in the number of home occupation business licenses in the city of Grande Prairie as council and administration had anticipated during the COVID times?
Ms. Pinnock.
Through the chair, we have had around 250 new businesses start up in the city last year. Just over half of those were commercial, and the other 49 or 48% were home-based businesses. We only started business licensing as of 2021, so we can go back and look at the data and what we have, but that would be a part of our planning and development department, and we could certainly go back to them and find out some more information to bring forward.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't have any power to make a motion on this committee, but that would be good information to at least circulate. I would hope for. Thank you.
I guess I can ask members of the committee, is there anyone who would be interested in making a motion, or is this a quiet request for more information? Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I'd like to move that we request administration to come back with a preliminary report or whatever on what the history is and where the businesses are. Is that home occupation? Sorry. Thank you.
Councillor Connor, do you want a report, a written report at committee, or is an email follow-up sufficient?
Whichever is easiest for administration. So an email follow-up to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then it seems we don't need a motion for that.
I will remove my motion, and somebody needs to fix this button.
So Councillor O'Connor withdraws his motion, and I don't see any further conversation or business coming from Ms. Penick's report, looking around the room on the computer. So let's move straight ahead to height regulations for multi-attached dwellings. And Mr. Babaloa, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Blackmore. At the Invest GP Committee meeting of February 14, the committee directed administration to review the development regulations in the medium density land use district with attention to increasing the building heights for multi-attached developments. Per our land use bylaw, multi-attached dwellings are residential dwellings containing 3 or more dwelling units separated by common walls. The house forms or building forms in this category include townhouses, row houses, triplex, and fourplexes. So the LUB currently allows multi-attached dwelling in 3 residential districts as permitted uses. These districts are the RT district, that is a residential transition, the combined residential, and the medium density residential. However, the maximum height set for this at this point currently 2 stories. So before the committee's directive on this, administration has started reviewing the land use bylaw, although specifically to address the setback requirements in corresponding to the building heights. And this is to mitigate the impacts that the higher building heights have on the lower building heights, and especially when they are adjacent to lower building in low density residential area. The committee directive, therefore, is in alignment or in line with what administrative was working on. So administration foresees no issue in amending the land use bylaw to increase the maximum building height for multi-attached dwelling units in the medium density residential area from 2 stories to 4 stories. And based on this, administration recommends that the committee directs that administration brings forward a land use bylaw amendment that will address this increase to council review. So, yeah, thank you.
So is there questions for Mr. Babalolo? Mr. Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Blackmore. So I really, really like this idea. It creates urban density. And architecturally, I've seen some stunning buildings similar to this. So I'm glad that we're moving in this way. But when I look at some of these, again, very nice architecturally buildings, ceiling heights can vary. Standard is 8 feet, but I've seen some as high as 10 to 12 feet. So you take that extra 4 feet times 4, it's an extra 16 feet higher on a building. So when we say a maximum of 4 stories, is there actually a measurable maximum height of 48 or 50 or 60 feet? Does that matter?
Yeah, eventually it does matter, but that's one of the things that we'll review in the proposed bylaw that we'll be bringing forward. Because in our bylaw, some places we use we use stories to define the building height, and in some cases we use meters to define the building height. So we will kind of figure out what is what height, how high is a story and stuff like that. And then we'll factor that in the proposal that we're bringing forward for the bylaw amendment.
Yeah, thank you. I just see an extended height challenging in some neighborhoods, others it might not be. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I also have Mayor Clayton online and Councillor Plot, so I'll go to Mayor Clayton first.
Thanks, Chair Blackmore. Just to clarify, in the stakeholder engagement part of your report, it identifies that in the amendment process, you will engage the public, internal department, external service providers. I'm assuming that's industry associations as well?
Through the chair. Yes, that will include UDI and every stakeholder that is relevant in this process, just in standard process for amending the land use bylaw.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Councillor Plot.
Thanks, Chair Blackmore. Also want to thank Chair for stepping in for me today while I'm gone, and my apologies to Councillor O'Connor. I thought you were also in Edmonton on Zoom as well, so I would have asked you otherwise. So my apologies. I was just going to say I'm ready for business rising. I don't know if anybody else has hands up in chamber or not. I think this is a great step for the city to take to kind of get another option for multifamily.
Thank you.
So there was no question there, correct?
That's correct.
No, I'm just ready to make a motion if nobody else has hands up in the chamber. So.
I don't see any other hands up in chambers, so go ahead and make that motion, Councillor Plot.
Okay, thank you. I would make the motion that committee direct administration to bring forward an LUB amendment to increase the maximum building height allowed for multifamily dwelling units from 2 to 4 stories.
Any questions or concerns? I'll call a question. All in favor? And that carries. So thank you, Mr. Babalola. We will move on to bylaw policy review. And I believe that the staff report for this is being presented by Ms. Pinnock.
Thank you, and through the chair. Today we're bringing forward Policy 316, the Downtown Incentives Program, and recommended motion for committee to consider for council to rescind Policy 316 and to reallocate the remaining funding to the Economic Recovery Fund. Just to give a little bit of background, the Downtown Incentives Program had 5 grant streams. All of them are closed except for the facade improvement grant. I do have a verbal correction to make to the report. It's just a little bit of a change based on our reconciliation on the spreadsheet. So there isn't just $13,000 left. There's actually $36,000 left in the facade improvement grant, although it doesn't change administration's recommendation to rescind the policy and to reallocate that funding to the Economic Recovery Fund. And further to that, for committee's consideration, potentially to the beautification stream under that, because both of those are similar projects that would support businesses.
Do we have questions for Ms. Pinnock? Councillor Bosch?
Thank you, Chair Blackmore. This 36,000, so it was citywide, was it not? The facade grant at 25 matching?
So this was specific to the, through the chair, to the Downtown Incentives Program.
And the max was still 25% or 50?
It was 50%.
I'm sorry, 50,000 or 25,000?
50,000.
Okay. So I was under the impression that that was a citywide moved into the total, and it stayed at 25,000. Last year? No? Okay. In any case, you want to move this 36,000 into this new programming. And what can people do with that you say aligns with facade?
So through the chair, and maybe I'll just step back and just provide just one other piece of information. So administration is planning on bringing back a full report to committee on all of the grants and incentives program that the city currently has open. A number of them that were in existence have closed as of the end of last year. So we only have a couple of them that are still open. This process today is just to look at the policy pieces and to clean up the policies. And then when we bring forward the full overview of the grants and incentives program, everything that's left in the different streams and in the different pots, along with a comparison to other municipalities, committee and council would have a chance then to determine whether or not they would want to recapitalize any of those or look at new grant programs or things like that. And that's planning to come forward before the end of Q2.
Okay. Yes, I was aware that several of them were done at the end of December because I have people asking me in the Corps to get a grant. However, the 13,000, 36,000 does make a difference. That could have been somebody's facade grant. So in any case, I guess we'll see what comes out here shortly.
Okay, I see Mayor Clayton has her hand up online. Go ahead, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Blackmore. Just to clarify, and for those who may be watching online, so your intent and your recommendation, Ms. Pinnock, is to rescind this policy. However, if there were downtown businesses who are looking to put in patios and or facade improvements, they would now qualify under either a beautification or a economic development, and I apologize, I forgot the name of the other grant. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. Beautification under the Economic Recovery Program would be the stream that's open for those types of projects. The other projects that were previously available have closed under the DIG grant program as of the end of December. And so those funds are still for council to determine where they would want to reallocate those. Just for a little bit of background, there hasn't been an application under the facade grant since November of 2021. So we haven't had any businesses that have come forward right now with the existing pot of money, and that's why we're making the recommendation to move it over into economic recovery.
Okay, if I may, Chair Blackmore.
Yep. Go ahead.
Can I have a follow-up of my question? Thanks. So I guess to clarify, regardless that people aren't going to do facades in the fall, maybe they didn't want to look at patios if they didn't have the time to, or sorry, rather the funds to build them last summer. Businesses that want to build patios or do facades will still qualify under another grant. So that's great to hear. Public needs to be aware of that, or sorry, downtown businesses that were considering that need to be aware of that. But on the other items that, regardless that they've expired or not, is there any items such listed as grants that wouldn't qualify in the either policy 357 or the beautification and economic revitalization grant? Is there any initial sort of items from policy 316 that aren't covered under another policy or grant opportunity?
Ms. Pinnock.
Through the chair. So the Urban Residential Development Grant, Patio Grant, Waiver of City Fees, and Demolition Grant, those ones have all been closed for some time now. They are not covered under other grant programs. The grant programs that are currently existing would be economic recovery with the marketing grant, the training grant, the beautification grant, and the barrier-free grant. And then under DIG would be... Sorry, Mayor Clayton, go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, Ms. Pinnock.
Those would be the only grant streams that would be left open if we close this and rescind this policy.
And so I think maybe my question wasn't clear. Patio grants, I thought you identified would be under beautification. Is that not true? Is that incorrect or correct?
I'll maybe just ask Cindy Patton, our Business Expansion and Retention Coordinator, to come up. She manages specifics to each of these grant programs, and she can give some background on the beautification grant stream that would still be open.
Hi, through the chair. With the beautification and patio grant that is currently still open, businesses would be able to take advantage of facade improvements or patio expansions or new patios being built.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification. Ms. Chairman, when you have an opportunity, I'd like back in the queue, but I know there's others waiting.
I don't think there are actually others waiting other than Councillor Bosch has put her hand up again. So there we go. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm curious, what are you looking at in regards to the facade for the future? Are you opening it citywide? Are you planning to kibosh it? What's the intention here?
Through the chair, with the beautification and patio grant, it's currently open throughout the city, whereas the facade improvement was strictly downtown. So businesses now still, whether they're downtown or throughout the city, could take advantage of these grants.
That's 15,000 though.
Correct.
Not 25 or 50,000. What is this one that I keep bringing up that it's 25,000 max and 50% in?
So that would be the Business Revitalization Grant that was through the DIG program that closed December 30th.
Which essentially was a facade grant,
It was
right?
a facade or large landscaping project that was available throughout the city.
And what was the usage on that grant?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Do you think it was well subscribed from what you can remember?
Definitely, yeah.
And will that continue to be one of your avenues for granting, but citywide, including the downtown?
That's one that I would recommend, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Back to you, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks so much, Chair Blackmore. I think, this is kind of a little bit of a cleanup in policies. I think that's great. However, if money's carried over, if there's better use for the money, great. But as businesses have recovered out of COVID throughout our city, I think that there should still be ongoing opportunities, whether it's beautification, whether it's facade, whether it's demolition opportunities. And regardless, I know I've heard administration mention a few times that these have expired. Regardless of that, council's consideration could be for grants like this to be extended in the future as businesses come out of recovery. I mean, recovery's been slower for some than others, and now as they're learning, they're stabilized themselves, they may be learning of opportunities. And I think that as we continue to support these, regardless that past ones have closed, I think that the opportunities need to be out there, and that there should be opportunities for beautification, facade, landscaping, demolition, etc. As well as I'm looking forward to see what administration brings back in regards to urban residential development grants, because we know that as our community continues to grow, living in the core, being surrounded in density locations is optimal. So I look forward to seeing what administration brings back with this. However, I just want the business community to know that there is still opportunities out there if you're looking to invest in your business in regards to beautification, etc. So thanks for this, and in my opinion, it's more of a cleanup of multiple policies and funds. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember for the business community that if they are uncertain about any of the grants, just certainly contact InvestGP and ask. That's the center of authority or the center of knowledge for this type of business, and so I encourage people to go directly to the source. I'm going to turn to Councillor O'Connor to make the business happen here.
Thank you, Chair Blackmore. I would like to move committee recommend Council rescind Policy 316 and reallocate remaining funding to the Economic Recovery Fund.
And Mayor Clayton, your hand's still up. Is that leftover? Okay.
No apologies.
Okay, we will call a question then and ask for the vote. And that carries unanimously. So we're going to move on to item 6.2, which is an update to Policy 357. And again, the staff report is going to be brought to us by Acting Director Kim Pinnock.
Thank you. Through the chair. This is also another policy update. It's for Policy 357, the Development Incentives and Grants Program. That was a program that was launched back in July of 2021. It had 5 grant stream opportunities: the New Business Development Grant, the Business Retention and Expansion Grant, the Business Revitalization Grant, the Residential Infill Grant, and the Municipal Fee Rebate. There is 3 of those grant streams that closed as of December 30th, 2022. That was the Business Revitalization Grant, the Residential Infill, and the Municipal Fee Rebate. And so the recommendation is that committee recommends council approve revisions to Policy 357 as presented. It's a cleanup of the policy document to remove the 3 grant streams that are currently closed and leave just the policy with the 2 remaining that are open till 2025.
Okay, I see Councillor Palat has his hand up.
Thanks, Chair Blackmore. Can I get an update on what's the balance of this fund that's left?
180.
Go ahead, Ms. Pinnock.
There's lots of, through the chair, there's lots of in and outs right now with some of these grant programs as the final reimbursements are coming in from the communities, so or from the businesses. So there is a little bit of flux in that number. Right now, we anticipated that council might be asking these questions. Through the chair, I may not have that information right in front of me right now for what is remaining in that fund, but that will be coming forward as part of the update before the end of Q2 with all of what's left, including what's left in that dig pot. I think it's close to 700 and some thousand, 750,000 or so.
Okay.
Okay, no, perfect. Thanks for that. And if I can, another one that
yes,
I had is
go ahead.
Looking at the revisions, and I understand why we're making the changes, but I'm a little concerned I don't see anything for infill now in our program. So I'm just wondering, is that something that's going to come back through potentially the recovery committee or somewhere else to look at different options on that? Or where's that going to land?
Through the chair, absolutely. That will all be what comes forward in that full report from Q2 that gives council a list of all of the grants that they've had, all of what's being spent, all of what remains, and then some options to consider for future grant programs.
Okay, no, thanks for that. I have a couple more, but I'll hop out of the queue and pop back in later if that works.
Ms. Pinnock, when can you remind us when that report will be coming forward?
Before the end of Q2, okay. Before the end of June.
Thank you. Councillor Plott, you're the only one still in, oh no, Councillor, I'm going to go to Councillor Plott first because Councillor Bosch just always sticks her hand up at the last second.
All right. Yeah, I'm just curious also on, and here right now I'm seeing we have tax incentives for $25 million projects for commercial and industrial. And I know when I guess I was part of the council when we made that decision, the recovery committee, but I'm wondering why we're worried about leaving out multifamily. And I'm just is there a reason that we wouldn't want to add multifamily to that amendment if we're going to make an amendment now? As we're just really hoping that we need some projects to go on the ground. This actually could be a big impact for them. So is there a reason we don't have it in?
Ms. Pinnock, are you able to answer that?
So this would be under the new development grant where it's a 10-year, 100% tax rebate, and it ascends to 0 over 10 years.
Through the chair, I'd have to clarify if there was anything that would restrict the multifamily from being a part of that development, unless Ms. Patton has something to add. For the 2 remaining under dig.
From what I understand through the chair, they were just commercial based, and bringing in new business was the focus on those 2 grants that are available. But it is something that we could look into.
Okay. I'll hop out of the queue happily for Ms. Bosch, but I'd like to make an amendment, motion for amendment, please.
Okay, I will go to Ms. Bosch.
Thank you. I guess just a feel question. We're essentially just coming out of COVID here, you know, a half a year. Do you feel that the environmental conditions are just starting to happen for investment versus what they were previously? And so I'm just wanting us to be cautious that maybe we didn't give this enough time. What is your thoughts on that?
Through the chair, is the question about whether or not DIG was given enough time to remain open?
Yeah, basically, because essentially people are just like starting to seemingly to come out of this.
I don't know if we can ask administration to tell us how they feel about things.
Well, just in regards to what they're hearing on the street, right? So are you hearing that people are starting to make moves or people are still holding back? It's anecdotal, I get that, but the movement that I'm seeing, particularly with housing right now, and you know some businesses, seems that people are just starting to invest now more so than they did, you know, in this last 3 years.
So through the chair, what I will say is that the indicators that we are looking at in terms of the economy, in terms of what we're hearing when we're out at different events, in terms of even our attendance at ICSC, is that there is interest in the community and people are looking at Grande Prairie as an opportunity to invest.
That's exactly what my question was. Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Plott, I think we're going to have Councillor O'Connor make the motion and then you can follow up with an amendment. Does that suit you? Perfect. Go ahead, Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend council approve revisions to policy 357 as presented, and I'll open the door for amendments.
Go ahead, Councillor Plott.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'd like to amend in our policy under number 1AI, I guess, under new development grants, that we add the word after the words for the new large-scale commercial, industrial, or multi-developments in that. And just adding multi-family developments in there at a $25 million project, just to speak to this, that's probably about a $100 to $120 project. And we need a bunch of those to happen. And so the Park Hotel project downtown, potentially, those kinds of things. This is just another mechanism that really could help those performers over the course of that first 10 years for sure. Maybe get some projects off the ground. So I hope we can support this amendment because I think it might have just been a miss even on my part back when we were putting this committee together. I know we were trying to really concentrate on industry development, but without affordable housing, we can't get industry development to the same level. So I think it's a needed amendment.
So that amendment is in order. I would ask if there's any discussion or questions or concerns from council, from the committee about the amendment. I see no hands up on the screen and I see no hands up in council chambers. So I will call the question on the amendment.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
That does carry. So now we will call a motion, the original motion as amended.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
And that amended motion does pass. Then we will move on now to the outstanding items list. Ms. Penick, can you lead us through that as well?
Yes, through the chair. All of the items on the outstanding items list are in order. For item 1253, the Bose Family Gardens annual availability, I believe Chief Lemieux is ready to speak to that.
So, Madam Chair, if I may,
yes,
in support of my colleague here, that item, when that first started, was actually on the Public and Protective Services Committee's list. It's been moved to this list, but I have provided through an email today a brief report from Catherine Ridgway on the available days on average since 2018 at the Bose Family Crystal Gardens, and basically the average available days from 2018 to 2022 were 192 days annually. We have removed 2020 and 2021 from that stats based on the pandemic, and most of the availability is in summer months, June to August. And I believe that question had been raised when we were talking about potential indoor recreation facilities. So that's the information. It's been shared with council in an email.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Palat, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just hoping to make a motion about another potential item to go on the outstanding item list if there's no other. Yeah, if that's an opportunity now.
Sure, go ahead.
So earlier our conversation was about the potential use of Smithfield and Rotary Field lands. And so I guess for me, I've always felt, I don't know if in my heart I think that's the best location if we're going to put seniors and youth and families in there. I like the idea of other locations better. So my motion is to direct administration to identify up to 5 locations best suited for family and senior affordable housing. And I'll leave it at that. I guess my hope with this would be come back to the appropriate committee. I'm assuming there would be an in-camera session to talk about this because it would be land acquisition. But I think with Grand Spirit coming forward, we heard that we're not just short a few doors, we're short hundreds and hundreds of doors. And I think we need to start really looking at a strategy of proper land acquisition where we're putting housing near schools, near amenities for the either seniors or youth, depending on what their amenities may be, near shopping, near transit. I just think there's a lot better locations for us to build the best chance for success for those folks that are in affordable housing positions. So hopefully that motion comes through well enough to show up on our e-scribe, and hopefully I can get support on that.
Do we need a motion to add things to the outstanding items list when we're just giving direction to administration? Yes, we do. Okay. So that motion is in order. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call a question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
And that carries. So now I think I will go to Councillor O'Connor to make the motion to accept the outstanding items list as amended.
Yes, thank you, Chair Blackmore. I'd like to move that committee receive the March 28, 2023 outstanding items list as amended for information.
And I'll call a question for that.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
And that carries. That concludes the Invest GP Standing Committee for today. So we will have a couple-minute break before we move on to the strategy and